We are back on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in New Mexico at 1000 KKIM. Our next guest we're lucky to have is the Majority Whip of the U.S. House of Representatives, our own Congressman, Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Hey, on a very serious note here, I understand you have a wager on, this is going to air on Saturday, on tomorrow's game.
I do, and it's with Andy Harris from Maryland. I'm going with the 49ers, and so I'm sure the 49ers are going to win. But if they were to have a bad day, I'm going to take some Dewar's Chews over to him.
And what's he going to give you?
I think, what did he bet? The crab cakes? Maryland crab cakes? I could have those any day. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maryland crab cakes versus Dewar's. I think he would end up with the better end of that deal, but what can I tell you?
Oh, yeah. He would end up with a much better deal. But we want the 49ers to win.
Yes, we do. I just hope they break the spread, but,
No, we put no spread into it. It's just a straight win or lose.
Okay. Good.
So let's get serious for a second and get into some politics because things are going crazy back in Washington.
No, you think?
Well, Kevin, bring us up to speed. What's going on back there?
Well, I'm going to tell you, for all your listeners, the next 90 days are very, very important. Because here we were in a battle towards the end of the year with the fiscal cliff, and you have a president who doesn't believe there's a spending problem in Washington. And he went after revenues. That debate is over, and now we're going into a debt ceiling. And what's going to happen is these are dates that people should watch. March 1st, because that's when sequestration, March 27th, because that's the continuing resolution, and sometimes after May 19th, because there's no telling what day the debt ceiling the Treasury has greater say in that, but that's really roughly the timeline what it would have. And April 15th. Now, what we did in the House was, one of the biggest challenges we have, here's a president believes it's not a spending problem. He believes the debt ceiling should be increased because it's just money that government has already spent. But for about the last 4 years, the Senate Democrats have never produced a budget.
4 years,
The last time they produced a budget, the iPad wasn't even introduced. There wasn't a Chevy Volt. There was no Instagram. And you've been going trillion-dollar deficits. Now, why this is important is when you look at discretionary spending and mandatory spending, we're borrowing $1 trillion a year. Well, that's about all that costs for government discretionary spending. That's your military, your government, all that. And he's been ignoring it. And when you look at the first 2 months of this new fiscal year, the November, December, we got 10% increase in revenue, $30 billion. Now, why that number is important, if the president had his way and increased taxes on 250,000, the small business owners, up higher, he would only have received $31 billion the first year. So in 2 months, we received $30 billion more in revenue. In just 2 months. But the problem being is spending increased 16%, $87 billion. So you're putting yourself in the hole. So looking at where we're spending, and that's why sequestration is very important. Those were the cuts that were agreed to in the last debt ceiling. When they go into effect March 1st, you'll have discretionary spending go down to $974, less than $1 trillion.
But do you think they'll really take effect, Kevin? Will they allow that to happen?
I do believe they're going to take effect.
Really?
Because remember, we started this with nothing in Washington ever happens. If nothing happens, it goes into effect.
Oh, boy.
When are they going to start fighting the Democrats? It seems like the Republicans are always rolling over as an outsider looking in.
Well, it may look at times like that, but I will tell you, this move, which we just did in the House, where we said no budget, no pay, focused on the Democrat Senate not doing a budget. You have sequestration March 1st and the 27th. That battle is on right now. And so if you want to get engaged, now's the time to get engaged.
What about, I thought there was some kind of regulation that said they had to post a bill for 48 hours before it was voted on?
Well, in the House, we say we want to go for 3 days. When bills are posted so the public can read it and members can read it. And that's what we go by.
When are legislators going to start to read them before they vote?
That would be very kind, because when you looked in the Senate, they don't abide by that.
No, they don't. And they just passed a bill, I guess, yesterday, 600 pages that had a lot of pork in it that nobody's read.
Yeah, that's great. We don't do that in the House, and that all came out of the Pledge to America, which I was one of the authors of, and it was a frustration when you watch the Democrats controlling the House the way they brought. Here's a health care bill. Bring it to the floor, pass the rules at 2 in the morning, and you vote on it the next day. Nobody can even read it, or it's one thing to read something, it's to understand it. That complex, ask the other questions, get the answers that you need.
I'll tell you, Kevin, the only one over there in the Senate that seems to have any common sense that I can see right now is Senator Paul. He seems to have a head on his shoulders. I'm not even sure about Rubio anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, you got to listen to Rubio. Rubio is a smart individual. He's very compassionate in what he does. Rand Paul is very smart. There are some smart individuals. Now, their difficulty in the Senate, they're in the minority.
Right.
And the other difficulty that we have is, remember, we only have the House. And the president, I don't know if he's really followed through on the Constitution or understood it. He tries to act like he's a king. If you listen to the speech he gave at that inaugural, that was so far to the left, he would not even have given that a couple months prior on the campaign trail.
Exactly.
He would have never said those words on the campaign trail.
We're having a conversation with Majority Whip of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy. Speaking of that inaugural address, Clinton did something when he was president. He went to the center in the second term, knowing that there was the only way he was going to get anything done. This guy looks like he's going further to the left.
He is. And, okay, after the inaugural, they have a luncheon inside Statuary Hall, the former chambers where Abraham Lincoln served as congressman. Now, I get invited to that as the Majority Whip, and they seat people. Well, I was seated next to Bill Clinton. At the table, it was Bill and Hillary Clinton, Harry Reid and his wife, Chief Justice Roberts and his wife, the First Lady's mother, and Chief of Staff Lou, coming Treasury Secretary, and his wife, and Judy and I. So I leaned over to Clinton, and I said to him, I never thought I would hear this, but I think our members wish you were back in office. That's what we had there, and he kind of smiles. And I said, if there's one thing you could do, you should talk to this president. Explain to him how to come to the middle. Explain to him how to work with us. Because the president came by, shook my hand, and really want to work with you guys this year. I said, yeah, I hear that, but is it true? I said, my advice to the White House during the fiscal cliff, why don't you call Clinton? Because here was Clinton, he had Newt Gingrich, and he had Bob Dole. But they reformed welfare, and welfare was a tough place for Democrats to go, but it was better that he did it, and he balanced the budget.
It's interesting. We had Congressman McClintock on last month, and Tom said that he really misses Clinton compared to even Bush, because Clinton was willing to work with everybody and find that center ground.
Yeah, that's important.
Hey, Kevin, you said you passed a bill. I guess you passed a bill that said that until a budget is passed, no one's going to get their salary. Is that correct?
Yes. Now,
but they're going to get it eventually. You're just going to put it in escrow.
They will get it eventually, but because you can't do it because of the amendment, the Constitution. But you can hold it in escrow.
What about expenses?
What do you mean, expenses in the office?
There are expenses for travel and meals and whatever else that you guys get expenses for.
This is just dealing with the salary.
Is that only for the Senate, or does that include Congress?
No, it includes Congress, too. If the Congress does not pass a budget out of the House, they won't get paid either.
How about the president? Or the king, rather?
You can't. The president doesn't even sign a budget. So you can't hold him to that.
I see.
But, the president produces a budget. Now, he's late. His budget that he produced the last 2 years hasn't even received one Democrat vote for it, let alone a Republican.
You guys gave him a budget to vote on, and they couldn't even pass that or wouldn't vote on it.
No, we passed the budget. When we took the majority, we passed the budget in the first 4 months. Unheard of. We tackled bigger issues than anybody said that they could attack. Trying to save Medicare and Social Security, put us on a path to balance the budget and actually pay off the debt. No one ever talks about that. Sometimes people say, I want to cut the deficit in half, which he didn't do in his first 4 years. He expanded it. We're talking about balancing the budget and then paying off the debt. You can't ignore it. People always talk about the trillions of dollars, and that confuses people. We bring in roughly $2.45 trillion and spend $3.55. Now, the best way to explain it is take away all the zeros. So what it is approximately, we're a household that brings in $24,500 a year, but we spend $35,500. Now, how do you spend more than you bring in? You put it on your credit card, right?
Right.
So we're going to put $11,000 on the credit card this year. Now, there are debt limits on the credit card. So when you look at the credit card, right now there's $160,000 already owed to the credit card, and you're making $24,000 a year. Our debt is now larger than our overall economy. That is very important, the amount of debt to GDP. Because, look, there are times you can take on debt. I took on debt to buy my house, but I didn't take on more than I could afford. And that's the importance here of where we are in American history. The last time we were here was during World War II. We were fighting to save our country and save the world. Once that was over, you watched the debt come down. And who was borrowing our debt? Who was loaning the money? We were. We were loaning our government the money. Now our debt is rising up higher than the economy. And what are we borrowing it for? Our social welfare.
Yeah, it's insane. When we come back from the break, let's pick up right there, Kevin, okay?
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.